What does perfection look like in baseball? In November 1971, Roger Angell tried to answer that question. Watching the World Series, he wrote about Roberto Clemente playing a kind of baseball that none of us had ever seen before, throwing and running and hitting at something close to the level of absolute perfection, playing to win, but also playing the game almost as if it were a form of punishment for everyone else on the field. But what did the players themselves think? What did opponents say when they faced that arm? What did teammates whisper in the dugout? And here's the question that changes everything. Why did Willie Mays call Clemente the best player he'd ever seen? Let's start with the arm, because when people talk about Roberto Clemente, they always come back to the arm. Vin Scully, the legendary Dodgers broadcaster who called baseball for over 6 decades, put it simply: Clemente could field the ball in New York and throw out a guy in Pennsylvania. Tim McCarver was a catcher for the Cardinals. He had to watch those throws coming in from right field, game after game. McCarver said, "Some right fielders have rifles for arms, but he had a howitzer." He called Clemente the greatest right fielder of all time because of his precise and powerful throwing arm. Here's a story that shows you what that arm really meant. Late 1960s, Forbes Field, Pirates versus Cardinals. The ball rolls through Clemente's legs in right field. Orlando Cepeda, who was on base, takes off for home. The ball rolls all the way to the warning track, over 350 feet from home plate. Clemente picks it up with his back to the plate. He whirls, he throws, no bounce, strike to home plate, Cepeda is out. The press box went silent. One writer looked around and asked, "Have you ever seen anything like that?" Nobody had. Clyde Sukeforth, the Dodgers scout who discovered Clemente in 1954, said, "There's a boy who can do 2 things as well as any man who ever lived. Nobody could throw any better than that, and nobody could run any better than that." That arm wasn't just about assists, it was about deterrence. Runners stopped testing him. Willie Mays, the say-hey kid, many consider him the greatest player who ever lived. So when Mays was inducted into the Hall of Fame and attended a Boston baseball writers' dinner, someone asked him, "Who's the best player you've ever seen?" Mays didn't hesitate. "I'd have to say Roberto Clemente. He could do anything with the bat and in the field." Eyebrows raised. This was Willie Mays talking. The next day, Mays tried to clarify his words, but he'd already said it, and he meant it. The respect went both ways. Clemente once said about Mays, "Willie Mays is the greatest ball player I've ever seen. I never saw Joe DiMaggio play, but if Joe DiMaggio was better than Willie Mays, he belongs in heaven." But Clemente also added, "I have great respect for Mays, but I can go get the ball like Willie and I have a better arm." That wasn't arrogance, that was assessment. And when Willie Mays says you're the best he's seen, that tells you everything. 1960. The Pittsburgh Pirates beat the New York Yankees in the World Series. Roberto Clemente hit 314 with 16 home runs and 94 RBIs during the regular season. In the World Series, he hit safely in all 7 games. Then the MVP voting came out. Dick Groat won. Clemente finished 8th. When reporters asked him about it, Clemente said, "Political reasons, code for racism." Willie Stargell reflected on this in a 2000 interview. "In a lot of ways, Roberto had it worse than I did. The reason I always thought Roberto and other guys from the Latin American countries had it more difficult is that they didn't speak much English. It was their second language. But it wasn't just language. Look at his baseball cards. Through 1969, Topps listed him as Bob Clemente. Writers would quote him in broken English, mocking his accent. Clemente said, "To the people here, we are outsiders, foreigners." He refused to answer to Bob. His name was Roberto. That was dignity. Bill Mazeroski understood this. He said Roberto just wasn't the type of guy you took off and embarrassed in front of the team. He'd crawl into a shell. So Clemente turned the anger into fuel. 1961. Won the batting title, hitting 351. 1966. Finally won the National League MVP. Every batting title, every Gold Glove was a statement. You can ignore me, but you can't deny me. Juan Marichal was one of the greatest pitchers of his generation, a Hall of Famer who faced Clemente dozens of times. Marichal said, "The big thing about Clemente is that he can hit any pitch. I don't mean only strikes. He can hit a ball off his ankles or off his ear. One of the best pitchers alive is telling you, there's no safe zone." Clemente's batting stance was unusual. He'd roll his neck before each pitch. When he finished his swing, his face was nearly pointing toward first base. It looked awkward. It was devastating. He didn't swing for home runs. He swung for line drives. Forbes Field had deep dimensions, so Clemente adapted. He became a master of driving the ball to all fields. People criticized him for swinging at bad pitches. Clemente said, "I go up to hit. I hear people say I swing at bad pitches. If I can hit it, it is not a bad pitch." That's not just confidence, that's philosophy. 4 batting titles, a 317 lifetime average. He hit over 313 different seasons, 3,000 career hits. Bad ball hitting wasn't a weakness for Clemente. It was a superpower. Pitchers couldn't pitch around him because there was nowhere safe to throw. October 1971. The Pittsburgh Pirates face the Baltimore Orioles in the World Series. The Orioles are defending champions with 4 20-game winners. Roberto Clemente is 37 years old. He's been overlooked for 17 years. This is his moment. Here's a story that shows you Clemente's mindset. The morning of Game 7, Clemente and Manny Sanguillen get into a taxi in Baltimore. The driver doesn't recognize them. He starts criticizing Clemente, says Frank Robinson is the better player, says Clemente is just a whiner. Clemente and Sanguillen sit quietly. When they arrive at Memorial Stadium, Clemente identifies himself to the shocked driver. Then he tells him exactly how Orioles pitcher Mike Cuellar will pitch to him. And he predicts he'll hit a home run. 4th inning. Clemente hits a solo home run off Cuellar. Pirates win 2-1. World Series champions. Nellie Briles, a Pirates pitcher, said he was a man with a mission. The numbers? 414 batting average, 12 hits in 29 at-bats, 2 home runs, 1 triple, 2 doubles, hit safely in all 7 games, World Series MVP. Gene Clines remembered what happened after they lost Game 2. In the documentary 100 Years of the World Series, Clines said, "After we lost the second game in Baltimore, Clemente came into the clubhouse and he starts screaming and said that we're going to go back to Pittsburgh and we're going to kick their butts 3 games in a row. And we went back to Pittsburgh and we did exactly that." When Clemente accepted the MVP trophy, he said, "I want everybody in the world to know that this is the way I play all the time, all season, every season." Then he spoke in Spanish, asking for his father's blessing. 17 years of proving himself, and finally, the whole world saw. Great players don't automatically become great leaders. Roberto Clemente was both. Manny Sanguillen was a young catcher from Panama who joined the Pirates in 1967. In an MLB PA interview, Sanguillen remembered a moment that defined Clemente's character. Sanguillen said, "He always had that mentality that we're all the same. There was no difference between black and white. One time we were in San Francisco and he took me to the tailor where Juan Marichal, Willie Mays, and Willie McCovey all went. He had 12 suits made and he told the tailor to make me 6. He told me, 'You deserve it, Manny, because you're a big leaguer like me.' That wasn't charity. That was elevation." Steve Blass saw how other players reacted to Clemente. Blass said he was the one player that players on other teams didn't want to miss. They'd run out of the clubhouse to watch him take batting practice. He could make a 10-year veteran act like a 10-year-old kid. Orlando Cepeda remembered playing winter ball in Puerto Rico. In a PBS interview, Cepeda told a story. "He don't feel too good. I went inside. I told Marichal he was pitching. Watch out for Roberto tonight. He's sick. He don't feel good. Watch out for him. He went 4 for 4, hit 2 triples, and threw a guy out from right field." And Cepeda remembered 1955, his first at-bat with Santos. He went 0 for 3 and felt crushed. After the game, Clemente told him, "You know what? It won't be the first time you're going to go 0 for 3. Won't be the second time if you play in the big league. Someday you will be there. Don't worry about it. It's always tomorrow." That's leadership. Not speeches, actions. September 1st, 1971. Three Rivers Stadium. Manager Danny Murtaugh writes out his lineup: Rennie Stennett, Gene Clines, Roberto Clemente, Willie Stargell, Manny Sanguillen, Dave Cash, Al Oliver, Jackie Hernandez, Doc Ellis. 9 players, all black or Latino. The first all-minority starting lineup in Major League Baseball history. The Pirates win 10-7. After the game, reporters ask Murtaugh if he realized the significance. His response became legendary: "I knew we had 9 Pirates." Perfect answer. No grandstanding, just merit. But that lineup didn't happen by accident. It was the result of years building a culture where talent mattered. Bob Prince, the Pirates broadcaster, spoke Spanish and mentored Black and Latin players. A teammate said, "He was like a coach on the team, the way he led you through the public relations aspects of being a big league ball player." Clemente and Stargell created an environment where respect was automatic. The lineup was historic. But the culture that made it possible, that was Clemente's real legacy. July 1971. All-Star Game festivities. Broadcaster Richie Ashburn asks Clemente when he'll get his 3,000th hit. Clemente's answer was strange. "Well, you never know. If I'm alive, like I said before, you never know, because God tells you how long you're going to be here, so you never know what can happen tomorrow." His wife Vera later revealed that Roberto told her several times he thought he'd die young. September 30th, 1972. Clemente doubles off John Matlack, his 3,000th hit, only the 11th player in history to reach that milestone. It was his last regular season at-bat. 83 days later, he was dead. December 31st, 1972. A massive earthquake hits Nicaragua. Relief supplies are sent, but corrupt officials steal them. Clemente decides to go personally. The plane is old, overloaded. Friends warn him not to go. He goes anyway. Shortly after takeoff, the plane crashes into the ocean. Roberto Clemente's body was never recovered. He was 38 years old. Willie Stargell, with tears in his eyes, said, "Pittsburgh lost a heck of a man." Clemente's work with the relief effort was typical. Roberto was always trying to help someone. It wasn't random that he died on a mercy mission. That was who he was. He had a premonition. He knew the plane was dangerous. He went anyway, because principle meant more than safety. 1973. Roberto Clemente becomes the first Latin American player inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. The 5-year waiting period was waived. Commissioner Bowie Kuhn said at his eulogy, he gave the term complete a new meaning. He made the word superstar seem inadequate. He had about him the touch of royalty. Joe L. Brown, the Pirates general manager, said years later, he's a shining star to many, many people. He grows and grows over time. He doesn't diminish. The sad part is that there are not enough TV pictures of him. He made so many great plays that people can only talk about. You could never capture the magnificence of the man. Most of Clemente's greatness exists only in memory and words. Future generations can't watch the throws, the catches, the at-bats. They have to imagine perfection. But maybe that makes the legacy stronger. Starling Marte, a modern Dominican outfielder who played for Pittsburgh, said in an MLB PA interview, "I think Roberto would be disappointed with what's going on in today's society. He was the kind of guy that was fighting against all the hatred and injustice that's happening today. He would be disappointed to see where we're at." The Roberto Clemente Award is given annually to the player who best represents character and community involvement. 50 years later, his fight continues. When Willie Mays calls you the best player he's ever seen, when Juan Marichal says he can't get you out, when opponents stop running on your arm, when teammates follow you into fire, when your death stops a nation, when your name becomes synonymous with character that's not just a Hall of Fame career, that's immortality. Roberto Clemente once said, "I want to be remembered as a ball player who gave all he had to give." Mission accomplished. But he was so much more. He didn't just play baseball at the level of perfection. He lived at that level too. He fought for dignity when it wasn't popular. He lifted others when he could have just lifted himself. He died trying to help strangers. And that's why, over 50 years after his death, we're still talking about what others said when they were asked about Roberto Clemente. Because greatness like that doesn't fade, it echoes.